Shahab, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you. So, for those of you listening who haven't met Shahab yet, Shahab is a best-selling author in Iran. He sold over 200,000 books in Iran, and he's also co-authoring a book with Brian Tracy. It's going to be very, very exciting, called "Ignite Your Life," coming out in 2016. So, Shahab, it's a pleasure to have you. Tell us about your background and kind of how you got started as an author.
Yeah, sure. It's an honor to be here, Tom. Actually, it goes back to when I was a kid, Tom. I used to be a very inquisitive kid, and I used to take things apart and fail to put them back all together. And my mom rarely told me off for this, and she always attributed this to me being intelligent and curious and that sort of thing. So I developed a keen interest in learning and being inquisitive and curious. And I loved studying and learning when I was a kid. I was always among the top three in my school. And then one thing led to another. There's a nationwide university entrance exam in Iran with more than 1 million people attending the exam every year. In 1997, I ranked first in that exam, came first, and that was huge for me. And everything started from there. I got accepted into the best medical school. I'm a medical doctor by profession. So all family and friends came running to me asking me for advice and wanting me to help their kids with their studies. So I kind of unknowingly started my career as a success coach when I was a medical student. So while being a medical student during the day, I started coaching students regarding their academic endeavors and their test prep in the afternoons. And slowly I made a name at it. So I decided that finally I didn't want to be a medical doctor. And then I got into coaching more and more. I started to make a name. I started holding seminars, workshops, and I started speaking to large groups of people. And after a while, people asked me to kind of uh, combine these notes and put together these notes and the stories I always told these young people. And those stories and those examples and those kind of nuggets of wisdom kind of uh, were compiled into my first book, which I published it in 1999, I guess, or 2000. And it kind of became an instant bestseller. I'm sure that you agree there's no such thing as instant bestseller because there's been so much work in the background before the bestseller comes out. But it happened just like that. And there were tons of different things that helped me to get this book on the bestseller list in Iran. And I can share them with you whenever you see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great story. I just want to kind of point out that, it all started really with your enthusiasm for what you were doing, right? Like you love studying, you love school, you love learning. And
Yeah,
obviously you were very, very good at coming out number one out of, over 1 million students. Uh,
yeah,
and so then started to teach, what you love to other people. And I think that's, most people I've seen who are really successful, in coaching and training and speaking are people who just love what they do and become really good at it and like to share what they've learned with other people. So, you know, uh, I see a lot of people they want to become a best-selling author, they want to make a lot of money, but they're really more focused on the money than they are on, what they're passionate about and what they're really good at and what they can actually teach people. And I think it's kind of a backwards way to approach the whole industry.
yeah, that's absolutely true, Tom. And as you've certainly heard the quote, they say, "Follow your passion, and money will follow you." So yeah, definitely. I wanted just to emphasize that you really have to follow your passion, and you really have to be good at what you do. You really need to be an expert in your subject matter to be able to actually gain the confidence to teach people. Because writing and being an author is being a teacher. You're teaching stuff to people. It may be your hobby, it may be a scientific subject matter, anything. You're a teacher, so you have to be an expert in what you do, and you have to be passionate about it. And this passion kind of shows to other people and is conveyed to other people. What you said reminded me of what Steve Jobs said in that famous commencement speech. You have to find what you love and go from there. Don't chase the money. Chase your passion, and money will follow you.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk about that first book then. You know, it became a bestseller, like you said, overnight pretty much, once it was published. You know, what were you doing to market it around, and what was the book about?
It was about test prep success, preparation for that university entrance exam, as I mentioned before. And I believe several factors helped me, or helped the book get to the bestseller list and sell thousands of copies. One of them was that, as I mentioned, I was kind of an expert in what I did. I had been down that road before myself. I've been working with thousands of students before I actually wrote the book, and I had this firsthand experience of that same experience that my audience would go through. So first of all, I guess my firsthand experience helped me a lot. The second thing was that I kind of leveraged a strong brand when I wrote this book. And what I mean by that is that I went to a publisher, or kind of a publisher came to me and asked me to write the book for them. And that publisher had a very, very popular book in Iran. So most of my target audience knew the publisher beforehand. And specifically because of that well-known author that was writing books and selling tons of those books to the target audience, a large portion of the target audience already were familiar with what I was doing. So I had this advantage. I kind of leveraged the brand of stronger and more famous author to my advantage. Another thing that I think helped me be successful with that first book was that I took a strong stance. I went against the flow in regards to the test prep coaching. So most of the test prep coaches back then believed in one kind of getting prepared for the exams. I went against the flow. I took a strong stance against them. And this kind of set my book apart from the mainstream. And that, I guess, helped me a lot. You know, if you just copy and paste, which most people do, why would you expect other people to come and buy your stuff? You have to have some differentiating tone or message or something specific to you. And later on, it's interesting, later on when I read Seth Godin's Purple Cow, I realized that this is the way to go. You have to go to the edges. You have to set yourself apart from the mainstream, from what other average copy and paste kind of people do. And it was interesting. The other day, I was watching one of Tim Ferriss's interviews, and I realized that the most important thing that got Tim Ferriss on the TV show, which later led to his success for the four-hour work week, was the stance that he took that went against the regular mainstream. So yeah, I took the strong stance. I went against the mainstream, and I repetitively actually announced it here and there in the book. And I knew it would work, Tom, because before in my seminars and workshops, when I told my audience that I think this way, and what other test prep coaches say is wrong, in my opinion, I saw that the audience, it resonated with the audience, and they kind of accepted what I said, because I had been down that road. I had become I've come first in that 1 million contender exam. So they kind of accepted what I said, and this kind of helped me get my message across.
Mhm. That's awesome. And so I know at the time you were also, like you said, coaching and, teaching seminars and speaking. So did you continue to do that and promote your books while you were speaking, coaching, and so forth?
Yeah, definitely. Tom, it helped me a lot. I mean, it kind of doubled and tripled my audience and the demand for my seminars and workshops. People obviously got to know me better. I got invited to speaking gigs, to conferences. Also, I began appearing as a TV expert guest uh, back then, and it continues up until now, even though I'm in Toronto and I live in Canada right now. Whenever I go on a business trip to Iran, I always appear on TV and as a guest expert, and that's totally because of my first book.
That's awesome. So have you been able to transition your success, from Iran to other countries and to sell books in other places? Or is it really just that one market that you've really honed in on?
Actually, my main focus has been on Iran's market because I immigrated to Canada just a year ago. But since I immigrated to Canada, I tried to use my experience in kind of writing, publishing, and marketing my books back in Iran to the new market in Canada. And I was kind of successful because I applied to a multi-author book, the upcoming book of the guru Brian Tracy, and I got accepted to be a part of that. And fortunately for me, my chapter in the upcoming book, Ignite Your Life, won the editor's best chapter award, editor's choice award, actually. And that helped me a lot, gain a lot of publicity here in Toronto. So different magazines and newspapers interviewed me. I got invited to be a guest on a personal branding podcast. That's what I'm doing here in Toronto, personal branding. And yeah, during a short period of time, I kind of succeeded in being a part of Brian Tracy's book, being on podcasts as a guest, and being interviewed. So I guess if you do the right thing and if you follow the right advice, I mean, you can always make sure that you're on the right track.
Absolutely, totally agreed. Yeah, so I want to kind of switch gears now and walk through kind of a day in the life of Shahab, right? So, tell us about your days. How do you structure them, and especially, your writing and your marketing? How do you devote time to writing and marketing, and what is your process thinking about that?
It's interesting because I do have a small version of my of my day and what I do during the day here with me. It's on my desk. I always follow. I can read from my notes. I have a ritual in the morning, Tom. I normally wake up at around 6:45, 7 a.m. I do some centering for 5-10 minutes, some centering and meditating. And then I review my goals. I have actually Word file, Microsoft Word file. I've written down my goals. I review them daily, both in the morning and when I go to bed at night. And then I study and do coaching for 2 hours. I study and do personal branding coaching for 3 hours. I practice or do speaking gigs for 2 hours, 2 hours every day. It's either practice my speeches, or practice my speaking, or doing the actual speech. And I study sales and marketing 1 to 2 hours a day because I'm kind of planning, and I'm revealing to it this first time to you on your podcast show that I'm planning to actually get started on a hopefully international bestseller in 2020. So I'm planning to do that. I'm getting my stuff together, my notes together, and the book will be on personal branding. hopefully. I'm telling this out loud to the world. I'm not dreaming, I'm doing this. And then I spend the rest of my time actually networking, talking to people, building relationships, and that sort of stuff.
That's awesome. That's great. I love, what's interesting about your list is that you spend so much time, like you said, speaking, but also practicing speaking.
Yeah.
Which I think, for a lot of people, it's probably kind of like a weird concept. Like, do you really practice? Like, do you stand in front of the mirror and talk to yourself? But I think, with when you want to be successful at something, that's what you do. Like, you just put in the time, you put in the hour, you put in the practice. And so when you show up to your event, you're prepared, you've done it 100 times and so forth. And so I just really want to give you, props and accolades for doing that, because it just proves that you really do care about what you do and you really do want to be the best in your field. And that's what it takes to get to the top.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. Thank you so much. And I remember a best-selling author once said, I heard him say on a podcast that in order to be interesting, you have to be boring. And what he meant was that you have to practice over and over and over to the point that you get bored with what you're practicing with, so that when you get on stage and when you give the actual speech, you will look interesting to your audience. And that's absolutely correct. Whenever I want to give a speech, something like 15, 20 minutes speech, it's a very short speech, I have to work on it maybe for 10 days. And I have to put in something like 10 hours to actually come up with a 15, 20-minute speech, which will include stories, examples, a moving message to the audience, and kind of a call to action at the end. So yeah, it definitely needs practice. And the more practice, I remember this quote, it says, the more you sweat in advance, the less you will sweat on the stage.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably a lot like studying for an exam, right? I mean, if you want to be number one out of a million test takers, like, you just have to study and keep practicing and keep reading. And I mean, you're just going to get bored. Like, eventually, when time comes to take the test, you're going to know everything backwards and forwards, and have read the book backwards and forwards. And yeah, it can totally be boring to practice that much, but that's what it takes to be the best.
Yeah, absolutely true. I remember from the book Outliers, as you definitely know, that you have to put in 10,000 hours of practice and work before you can declare yourself an expert in any topic. And that's totally true for speaking.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So who are some of the people that you look up to, especially authors that you look up to, and what kind of lessons have you learned from them, their lives, and their work?
There are tons of them out there, but because my main interest is in coaching and personal branding, I obviously follow those kinds of authors, such as Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, um, Dane Wayne Dyer, sorry. Um, who else? Malcolm Gladwell. And in personal branding, William Aruda, Deb Dibb, Dan Schobel, Peter Montoya. I love their works. And also, yeah, there are tons of others, but I really like them. Specifically, Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy, I love their work and the way they market their stuff. I mean, they're experts in marketing, because being an author is not just being good at writing. You don't even have to be good at writing to be a good author, to be a best-selling author. I remember Robert Kiyosaki. I remember once he appeared in a seminar. I saw an expert of the seminar. I was watching it, and Robert said that I don't even know how to spell words. I don't even know how to do punctuation. I'm not a best writing author. I'm a best selling author. And that was huge. And hearing it from a person who has sold 26 million copies of Poor Dad, Rich Dad, I mean, it's huge. You don't have to even to be a good writer to be a best-selling author.
Yeah, actually, I heard that exact same quote from Robert Kiyosaki, and that was also a really big lesson for me, and really changed my whole perspective on it, because I realized, if I really wanted to be successful as an author, yes, I have to, work on writing a good book and having great content and great ideas to share with people, but you also really have to focus on, talk about all the time, building your personal brand, getting your message out there, and really marketing and promoting yourself so that people actually hear the message, because just having your book on Amazon or in a bookstore or somewhere doesn't mean people are going to buy it. You actually have to go out and find your audience and, give them reasons to go out and buy your book.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And Tom, the thing that most authors don't know about is that marketing starts as you write the book, or even before you write a book. And when you look at the experience of best-selling authors who have had bestsellers on New York Times best-selling lists, you see this common thread. Um, Almost every single one of them tell us that you have to do the marketing before or as you're writing the book. And this holds true at least to the influential authors that I look up to, such as Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. That's awesome. Well, Shahab, you shared just a lot of great information with us today, and I really appreciate it. And before you go, tell us where people can find out more about you and the work that you're doing.
First of all, thank you so much, Tom, for having me on your show. And I always look up to what you're doing. And I specifically like you because you have an entrepreneurial kind of spirit with your story, selling lamps out of your dad's garage when you were 13 years old. I mean, that's awesome. And when we look at, because we as authors are entrepreneurs, so we have to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit in ourselves and not be afraid of sales and marketing, because that's part of what we do and what we have to do continuously. We have to promote ourselves. We can never stop selling and promoting ourselves without actually seeming pushy or salesy. Yeah, people can always find me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, and also on Facebook. Also, they can check me out on my website, Shahab Anari, ShahabAnari.ca.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shahab. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.